Now I want to apply the unsharp mask command to this blue line going through a light blue textured background. I'm going to raise the amount value to something like 250%. And now I'm going to enter a radius value of 5, just for starters. Unsharp mask, first of all, it locates the edges in the image. So what are the edges in this image? There are all this texturizing that's going on back here. Those are considered to be edges. And then the big edges, which are the outlines of this thick blue line. And it sort of weights them. Edges that only have a little bit of contrast are considered to be low contrast edges that get a little bit of sharpening in return. Edges that are high contrast edges receive a lot of sharpening. So there's already this strata inside unsharp mask. That's why you don't need threshold. There's already a kind of a threshold built into it. And then what the unsharp mask command does is it applies halos. So it applies a light halo on the light side of the edge and a dark halo on the dark side of the edge. So it enhances the inherent contrast in the image. And notice that this edge gets bigger and bigger and darker and lighter, darker on one side and lighter on the other, as I raise the radius value. What's most noticeable of all about this edge that's growing and growing? It's soft. It's a blurry edge. That's where this name, unsharp, comes from, is this kind of blurring that's actually occurring inside the image. So it's kind of fooling us. It's using blurring to achieve a heightened sharpening effect, and this radius value determines the thickness of that effect. Threshold says two neighboring pixels have to be so far apart in terms of their color. And the more we raise threshold, the more pixels do not get sharpened. The more we start ruling out pixels inside the image. So amount determines the amount of sharpening applied. Radius determines the thickness of these Gaussian blurred edges. And finally, threshold determines whether or not pixels get sharpened in the first place. So finally, one last thing I want to show you is what kind of image can be sharpened and what kind of image can't be sharpened. Let me close line radius. Which of these images is the best candidate for unsharp mask? And the answer is the Weave Giant. The reason is because he's in the best shape to start with. Unsharp mask is a tweaking tool. It's not an invent focus out of nothing tool. It'll do a very good job on sharpening this excellent level of detail that's inside the Weave Giant here. So if I press Command, Option F or Control Alt F and apply something like 100%, 0.7, that's great, a 0 threshold, and hit OK, this is before and this is after. So it does a very nice job of picking up the details in an already pretty darn sharp image. It's a finishing tool. Now then we have a soft focus image. How does it fare with this? Well, actually surprisingly well. What I'm going to have to do though is bump up the amount value to 200% instead of 100%. And even with a 0.7 pixel radius, things are still working out remarkably well. I'm going to hit OK. And notice that this is before, this is after. So it does a good job of sharpening those edges. However, we're not seeing new stuff. This is important to keep in mind. You're not going to see anything you didn't see before. I still have no idea what this statue's face looks like, any more than I had before. It just allows our eyes to fix in on this detail a little better. Our eyes read high contrast edges as sharp, as highly focused. And finally, blurry Christmas. You don't stand a chance in heck of doing anything with this image. This image is shot, all right? Because I'll press Command Option F or Control Alt F, and we can try to do something. I'll knock it up to 500%, heck, and we'll do a higher radius value if that's going to help, but it's not going to help. Our eyes might be deceived into thinking that there's some sharpness going on here. However, there's so little detail to work with that it's sharpened balls of gook is what we've got right here. But I'm not sharpening anything detailed. I could not, if I didn't recognize the shape of this tree, I'd have no idea that those are pine needles, and I'd have no idea that those, I can't see the edges of those bows very well, and so on and so on. So you get the idea. This image is not going to get sharper. And I know I'm really spending a long time on this filter. It's just because it's so important. I would say that every single image you open in Photoshop, you will sharpen to some extent or other. So we're talking about a filter you're going to use every time you use the program, and even more to the point, every time you open an image, you're going to be using Unsharp Mask. It's that important. No other filter even comes close.